Previously, in this series on body language, we've talked about the behaviors of comfort and discomfort, along with common behaviors of the feet, torso, arms, and hands. Now we're going to move on to the body language of the eyes, mouth, and face. People often work at hiding the emotions of the face, so it tends to be the least reliable area to read body language, but it also gives off a lot of signals and you can get a lot of information from it. You see clusters of signals where one signal implies that they're feeling good, like a false smile, and the other signals imply that they're feeling uncomfortable, like tight lips or a furrowed brow. When you get mixed messages like this, the negative signals are usually the honest ones. And make sure you stay tuned until the end of the video, where I'll talk about one facial display you can use that shows comfort and friendliness and is a great way to fast-track building rapport with anyone. Starting with the eyes, the first thing you want to look for is pupil dilation. Our pupils tend to widen when we look at things we like and contract when we look at things we dislike. For this reason, we naturally find wider pupils to be more attractive. One thing to note here is that pupils may initially widen due to recognition or being startled, because fear also causes pupil dilation, so don't read too much into the initial response. It's how wide the pupils are after they've had a chance to recognize us that tells us how they feel about us. The eyebrows follow the usual gravity-defying rules. When the eyebrows are arched and high, that indicates high confidence and positive feelings, while lowered eyebrows indicate the opposite. Squinting of the eyebrows can be a sign of being annoyed or even aggressive, whereas if the eyebrows go too low, it can show weakness and insecurity. Eye-blocking behavior is one of the biggest things you want to watch out for. When people cover one or both eyes, even for just a moment, it's a good indicator that they didn't like what they just heard or saw. You'll see many forms of eye-blocking behavior. It isn't just covering one or both eyes with the hand, but also prolonged blinking and tight squinting. Covering the eyes is such a universal behavior that even people that are born blind will cover their eyes when they hear something they don't like. Definitely train yourself to look out for this behavior. A very common behavior is the eyebrow flash. This is when you quickly raise and lower your eyebrows, like when saying the word wow, except it happens even faster than that in less than 1/5 of a second. Think of it as an unconscious way of saying hello. If the eyebrows are held up longer than that, it's generally a sign of shock or surprise. If only one eyebrow is raised and the other one is held normal or lowered, that's generally a sign of disbelief and the person is doubting what they heard. Looking down isn't necessarily a sign of deception. Some cultures don't train their people to look others in the eyes when speaking, and more submissive people naturally make less eye contact. High-status people tend to make more eye contact both when speaking and listening. Low-status people tend to make a lot of eye contact when listening to high-status people, but less eye contact when they're speaking themselves. We also tend to make less eye contact when we don't want to speak to someone, or we're forced to violate each other's personal space like in a crowded elevator. This brings me to the difference between gazing and staring. When we want to speak to someone, we generally look them in the eyes as a way of saying that we want their attention, but how do we avoid coming across as a creepy stalker that's just staring at them? The answer is in how we use our face. When we're gazing at someone, we'll often have a softer face and use our mouth to show more positive emotions. This is in contrast to the cold and impersonal nature of the creepy stare. The soft smile and expectant look of raised eyebrows can show the warmth in your desire to speak to them and keep them from being creeped out. An increase in blink rate, past the usual rate of 16 to 20 times a minute, is also a sign of stress, though not necessarily deception. It can be caused by arousal, nervousness, or concern. And if you see someone give you the side eye, possibly with an eye roll thrown in, it generally means they're not buying what you're saying. When it comes to the mouth, the first thing you want to look for is the difference between a false smile and a real smile. Even if you're not consciously aware of the differences, you can generally feel the difference just by looking at the person. The fake smile pulls back the corners of the mouth, but generally doesn't have the wrinkling around the eyes the way a real smile does. When you're feeling down, it can be very hard to give a genuine smile. You'll remember from the first video, I mentioned that the behaviors of comfort are pretty boring. They just look like nothing's happening. One of the behaviors of comfort is full lips. I don't mean that they're puffy or pouty, I just mean that they're there as normal. The contrast to this is tight lips. It can take a few forms, from just partial compression of the lips, to complete disappearance of the lips, to a frown. But in all cases, the lips are not full and relaxed as normal, and if you see it in someone that you're talking to, it means what they just heard really bothers them. Puckered lips are a sign of disagreement. The person might be considering what you're saying, but they're definitely skeptical and thinking of an alternate explanation. This is a very reliable indicator of disagreement and worth noting. The sneer is a universal sign of contempt. You're looking for the raising of one side of the lips, along with possibly the raising of one of the nostrils. Contempt is a very bad sign, especially when it's coming from your romantic partners. It's very rare for a relationship to last when one of the parties feels contempt for the other. The touching of the lips and mouth is another pacifying behavior that people find soothing. They might touch their lips with their fingers, lick their lips, or lick the inside of their lips in their mouth. Touching other parts of the face are also soothing, pacifying behaviors, but one you most want to watch out for is the touching of the nose. When people are tense, they may find that their nose itches more than usual, but what's particularly interesting is that when people are trying to hide that tension, they'll often sneak touch their nose. When they're feeling some sort of discomfort and they want to hide the fact that they're uncomfortable, they'll frequently briefly touch or rub their nose or cheek. The tell is that it will happen over and over. They'll go from having no interest in touching their nose to suddenly returning to it frequently. You can observe this in yourself as well. When you go from having no interest in touching your nose to suddenly wanting to touch it repeatedly, you likely have something that's bothering you that you're trying to hide from the person to whom you're speaking. Holding the tongue between the teeth, sometimes accompanied by movement in the neck and an eyebrow flash, is generally a sign that the person got caught or feels like they got away with something. You may also do this when entirely alone if you catch yourself making a mistake. If you see someone do this after speaking with you, it may mean they feel like they tricked you. A furrowed brow is associated with a number of negative feelings. This signal alone isn't enough to tell you whether they're sad, concerned, or angry, but you know they're feeling some sort of anxiety or discomfort. Nostril flaring is a sign of arousal. You'll see it during sexual arousal, but also when a fight's about to break out. Sometimes it's just a verbal altercation, and sometimes it happens right before they throw a punch. Blushing or turning red is a high-stress reaction. It can happen when you get caught doing something wrong, are embarrassed, or when someone invades your personal space. Like always, you need a baseline to establish what's normal for this particular person, but if you see them blush past their baseline, you know they're uncomfortable. Finally, the same gravity-defying rules that apply to the eyebrows and the arms and every other part of the body also apply to the head itself. If someone's head is down, they're likely experiencing something negative, and if their head's held high, they likely are feeling pretty good. At the beginning of the video, I mentioned a facial display that can be used to show comfort and friendliness and can be used to quickly build rapport with anyone. That display is the head tilt. The head tilt exposes the neck in a way that shows comfort and trust. We've all seen a dog do it, and the dog instantly looks more friendly and welcoming. We do it to babies who then respond with a smile. And we do it to our romantic interests as we look in their eyes and when listening to someone to show that we're interested in what they have to say. It's a powerfully disarming behavior, particularly when used during a confrontation. It's a great little trick, especially when combined with a smile, for building trust and connection and making people instantly like you more. If you want to know more about the head tilt, I have a whole video on it in the Social Skills Mastery online training program in the link below. There you'll learn how you can use the head tilt to come across as both strong and welcoming while avoiding any displays that make you seem weak or submissive. And because the program is all about daily exercises to help you build your confidence and social skills, you'll learn how to incorporate it into your normal behavior so it can help you every time you meet someone new. Hopefully you found this video helpful, and if you did, give it a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss anything. In the last video in this series, we'll focus specifically on using body language to detect deception. That's coming up next.